Take a little bit of time today to talk about this rubric because it is tricky and it's also something that we're going to modify from time to time. And then, if that weren't enough, we're going to be using it for most of the essays for the entire year. Um, so it's good to kind of get all of these things in our minds. Um, Really, when I'm approaching a course, I am not even looking at C, D, and F. C, D, and F are there as kind of guidelines of definitely what not to do, maybe things that you're missing. So I'm always looking at the A, B category, and I would be surprised if you guys weren't in that same boat. Um, and then the other thing that I'm going to do is just kind of walk through, obviously, purpose, audience, style, structure, those components that we've been talking about so much during the first unit. They're really the things that are going to shine and that are going to matter. And as we break down what those things mean, then we're going to get a good sense. We do have another criteria. The criteria is called the process paper. This criteria is based on analysis alone. So I am going to talk about that. And then the really tricky part of this rubric to me is that the process part is worth multiplied by 5, and the structure is 6, the style is 3, the audience is 6, and the purpose is 6. So we have these shifting scores that are holding different weights. So you can obviously see structure really big for us this year as we're trying to break out of that 5 paragraph essay. Style is the least of these, but remember we kind of talk about style and structure together in this conversation, so they actually make a pretty big impression. Audience is one of our biggest focuses this year, and purpose is just slightly less than that, with the goal of analysis and an analysis paper being a weight that's about the same as purpose. So you can kind of see, are you are you hitting that purpose, and then are you doing it well? Those kind of become the questions. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and talk about how these are going to work. So, again, when we talk about, zoom in one more time, as we talk about purpose, is it clear? Is it discernible? Is it appropriate for the rhetorical context? So that part of the purpose is, are you stating your intention pretty early on in the essay? Is that intention clear? Or if you're not doing that, if there's some kind of reveal later on in the essay, is it, that has to mix well with the structure too. Um, so I would say for almost everybody, your skill level is still at the place where you probably need to announce your purpose early on. It doesn't have to be direct. I'm not talking about a thesis statement necessarily, but the overall purpose needs to be clear. If we look at even the more kind of out there confusing essays like the female body, her purpose is evident. She actually attacks that at the very beginning, right? With, what do you mean my topic? If you're going to say you should write about the female body then as your topic, then she's going right after that idea immediately. And then it's evident throughout each part that she's connected her purpose to it. In an essay like I Want a Wife, the purpose is repeated over and over and over again, right? Although it is sarcastic. I will just point out in How to Poison the Earth, several of you didn't notice that it was sarcastic. So I wouldn't blame that necessarily on the author as much as just knowing that you guys haven't been exposed to as much satire, especially in writing. You're more used to satire in film and, on TikTok and whatnot, which is fine, but it's easy to miss the nuance of that. But to me, she was clearly showing the purpose is not to poison the earth; it's to save it. Um, Again, other things that are going to come up in the course. So, is there a historical or a cultural or a political context that helps the audience to understand the issue? Are you making context happen for the audience? And again, I think if we go through all of those different types of essays, Let's say that you're not a Christian and you're reading Salvation by Langston Hughes. I feel like he gives us enough context to understand what this Christian ritual of coming to Jesus is, even if you've never been in a church or never experienced Christian religion. You could probably still understand what's happening there, right? So he's giving us cultural and, in his case, religious context for us to understand. Where appropriate to the assignment, the goal of the outcome is proposed as feasible. So we'll get to that idea as we get to more specific assignments that are going to be, here's the thing that I want to accomplish. That definitely needs to be clear. If you're trying to convince somebody to do something, you want to be upfront with them. Audience, just making sure that you've clearly geared your message towards a specific audience. Thinking about, like I see here, knowledge, needs, and values. So again, making sure that your audience is authentic to you, probably not me. You can really trust me to understand that I am not your target audience. And that's okay. Believe me, I've read enough essays at this point in my life that I can appreciate an essay even if I'm not part of that audience. Alternatively, the author has created or invited the audience through persuasive messaging, through shape. Again, context plays a part here. So one of the things that you're going to see about these rubrics is, man, if your audience is not clear, then your purpose probably also isn't clear, right? This is a complex rubric, so one element isn't necessarily standing out more than the others. This is a nice little tagline that came up at SLU a few years ago that I really like for audience. The essay is enjoyable to read. Like that's kind of the bar to hit. And then I kind of qualified that with like the reader would like to read it again versus the reader would not like to read it again, but felt sufficient versus the reader did not find this essay enjoyable. So you can see like almost automatically if you're writing in that boxy 5-paragraph essay, it's not going to be enjoyable, right? So the structure also plays a part into the audience appeal. Style, this is where individual voice comes in. This is where word choice comes in, sentence fluency, other rhetorical devices. As you're crafting your style this year, this is the one that's going to kind of edge out. So the style and how well you're kind of getting your voice across is also very important. So one thing that I'll say is, as it affects audience and purpose, is that your style is going to make you feel distinct, right? Whereas my critique of almost all of the summer essays, not quite all of them, but almost all of them is almost anybody in the world could write this essay. There's nothing unique or individual about it. Nobody else in the world can write the open essay like you can. Nobody else can envision it the way that you can. Nobody else can come up with the ideas the way that you can. And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing some of those things in voice. And believe me, like, go big with voice because, again, I can reel you in. I could say, like, oh, you're kind of shooting for the stars on that word choice. It doesn't really feel like you versus, yeah, I think you're doing a good job of kind of developing a sense of self inside of the essay. Structure. So there's a consistent use of a design and an organization. It's effective and it is ethically incorporated. So if you're looking at this, one of the big things that I would say here is if you're citing material and you're not citing material appropriately, there's a whole other kind of category for that that's not on the scoring guide. But if that's where some of the problems are coming in, then this might actually affect your score. Each paragraph effectively supports the main idea. So you don't have paragraphs that are just kind of there to be there. Everything is connecting and supporting. Strong use of transitions. So what I mean by transitions is that you're moving from idea to idea effectively, not necessarily that you're using words like also. So again, I'll bring up an essay like The Female Body that utilizes a number system to move us through those things. Or an essay like I Want a Wife that just uses the tagline, I want a wife, to introduce the next topic, right? Or that Lean and Hungry Look, where she kind of will go like skinny people are like this, right? Where she just kind of moves into the next idea without prefacing it with like, also skinny people don't appreciate a good meal, because that's a really, really boring sentence. This is also where I'll take off points if I see like spelling errors, those types of things. Um, so just just an always gentle but strong reminder that we are going to be doing revision. Revision is all about content. And then we're also going to be doing editing. Editing is about making sure that your words and sentences and all that good stuff are appropriate. So when we do open essay, I take these 5 points from down here and I add them to purpose. So this is 6 out of 6. And then I add them to audience. And then I add 2 to style. And then I add 2 to structure. I think maybe it's 2 to purpose. I kind of even these out a little bit. And then style is always a little less. So that will happen occasionally. The 2 essays where I modify the rubric are open essay and family essay, where your central task is not doing any analysis. And the other essays that we have in the class are definitely doing some kind of analysis. Just as a handy guide to talk about analysis, so what you're doing is using outside sources, and they help to drive the purpose. You're concluding on an enlightening thought instead of repeating, and the analysis is clearly presented, as far as making sure that we have good citation, good incorporation, all of those types of things. So it's not, we'll talk about this a little later in the course, but we're not just plucking ideas out of the air and throwing them into the essay. We're incorporating them and using those ideas to kind of help us either support our own, right, because we're not always experts, or to drive the audience to understand something. Okay, so that's our rubric. Sorry if that's a little long, but I think it's worth our time to really understand something about the rubric here.